Perfect. We are now live.
All right, so hello, everybody. I gather we have a quorum with Hamad. Thank you for coming, Hamad. Unfortunately, we don't have Jane and Jessica, but we do have Councillor Cuddle with us. So I call the meeting to order, the Western Common Advisory Committee. Sorry, but it seemed to make a lot of sense and all the times we did that. So the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kmaq, the central and traditional land of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognize that we are all treaty people. So my name is Mike Lampo. I'm the chair of this committee, and I'll ask the others to identify themselves. So we have as a quorum. Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Councillor Patty Cuddle, representing District 11. Glad to be here.
Hamad, are you there?
Hi, this is Hamad. I'm also a member. Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming, sir. And we have regrets of Jane McNeil and Jessica McCarron. Also present is Gareth Evans. Good evening, Gareth.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's well.
Excuse me. So I guess the first order of business is or the second order really is to ask is approve the minutes of the previous meeting of May 21st. And has everybody received a copy of that? What has just happened here? Hello, did you hear me there?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my screen I touched this. I don't know what I did. Anyway, everybody's back. So the minutes of the May 25th meeting, hopefully everybody's had a copy and had a chance to review them. Are there any errors or omissions?
All good from my end.
Okay, Hamad.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cuddle. And the seconder? I guess that's got to be you, Hamad.
Yeah, I second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. So that's approved. Now we have the agenda for tonight. Has everybody had a chance to look at that, I hope? And are there any additions or deletions, Eric?
There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
No, thank you. Does everybody approve the minutes for tonight, or the agenda, sorry? Yes, Councillor?
Yeah, I don't know if we need a motion, but I move to approve.
Yep. We
I
have to-
second.
All right, thank you, folks. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, well, by the time we've moved it and seconded it, we got everybody's approval here. The quorum of 3. Oh, good Lord. It's unfortunate we don't have more with us tonight. Okay, so yes, business is arising out of the minutes. I don't believe we have any there. And does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? No. And Hamad, I can't see
No.
you nodding, or you're
Yeah.
good? Okay, thank you. Okay, and we do not have any deferred business. And correspondence, I believe there's none, Eric, is that correct?
No correspondence was received by the clerk's office.
And the same for petitions, sir.
No petitions were received by the clerk's office.
All right, well, we're just cracking right along here tonight. So now we have a 7.3, the organic waste facility. We have an overview from the Director of Waste Management, Andrew Philippoulos. So maybe we can let Andrew tell us his exciting new project. Give us an update, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Andrew Flopoulos, Director of Solid Waste Resources for Halifax Regional Municipality. Just wait for Eric to get the slides up. Awesome. So here this evening to present an overview of the new composting facility project. So next slide, please. An agenda for the presentation will include some background information around HRM's organics management strategy. We'll touch on the property at 61 Evergreen Place, which is the location of the new composting facility located in Ragged Lake. We'll also review the Community Integration Fund established for the project. We'll then get into the project itself. We'll get into the procurement award, facility design, and the current status of construction. To the right there, you see actually a 3D rendering of what the new facility will look like. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background. Next slide, please. Back in the 90s, late 90s, the municipality rolled out an organics management program, one of the first of its kind in North America, that consisted of rolling out green carts to residential dwellings across HRM. It also included the establishment of 2 composting facilities, one located in Ragged Lake, shown to the left, and one located in Burnside, showed to the right. Next slide. In 2014, the municipality conducted a strategic review of the solid waste system. As part of that review, it was identified that while the program had been very successful, the 2 facilities had aged, there were some challenges, they were at capacity, and it was identified effectively that there was a need to plan for a new facility. This led to 2014-15, where a business case was completed, as well as additional studies related to developing a new facility. This fed into comprehensive public engagement completed around the Green Cart program in general, as well as considerations for the development of a new facility. And ultimately, this all fed into what we framed as the organics management strategy, which was approved by Regional Council in 2017. Next slide, please. So some of the key points with regards to the organics management strategy pertaining to the development of a new facility. Environmental protection is paramount. And in particular with these types of facilities, odor mitigation is absolutely critical. Proven technology teams will only be considered. The development of a new composting facility would be developed at one of the 2 existing sites. We now know that the new facility is being developed adjacent to the existing facility in Ragged Lake. And cost will not be the only deciding factor, meaning that as part of the tendering process, there was significant weighting around community considerations and as well as technical considerations. Next slide, please. Back in 2017, the property at 61 Evergreen Place was expanded and rezoned to allow for the development of a new facility. This was approved by Regional Council in 2018. And as a result of expanding the organics processing that was taking place out in Ragged Lake, the municipality established a $1 million community integration fund. Next slide, please. This fund included $350,000 for the development of the Western Common Wilderness Common. It included $325,000 for the Prospect Road Community Center. And it also included $325,000 to be allocated through community consultation. These projects have been allocated in future years to HRM's capital budget. They reside predominantly with our Parks and Rec division and as well as our Facilities division. My understanding is that we're in the early stages of planning for these projects. And I also understand that the community consultation will be taking place later this fiscal year. Next slide, please. So moving on to the project. So next slide. In December 2020, Regional Council awarded a 25-year agreement to Harbor City Renewables, or HCR, for the development of a new 60,000-ton composting facility. HCR is a consortium composed of 2 Ontario-based companies, one called Maple Reinders, the other called AIM Environmental Group. The two companies have developed numerous composting facilities across Canada, including having most recently developed a facility in Calgary, and you see a picture of the Calgary composting facility there to the right. It's a state-of-the-art facility for Halifax based on proven experience, and the approximate cost over 25 years to design, build, and operate a new composting facility was in the order of $450 million. Next slide, please. So the facility design includes advanced odor mitigation. So it's a completely enclosed negative pressure building. It includes something called airlocks, and this facility will be the first of its kind to have airlocks associated with it. And what this means is effectively we have double shipping doors. So picture a collection vehicle entering the facility. It goes through an overhead shipping door. It enters a bay, that door closes, and then there's a second door to allow the truck into the facility. And so what that means effectively is at no time the inner process areas within the building will be exposed to the outside. Additionally, the facility will have a multi-stage odor treatment system. The process generates no leachate. So all leachate that is generated is recirculated within the process and consumed with the water negative process. There's no water or sewer connections associated with the facility. Additionally, rooftop water and water collected as part of stormwater management or the stormwater management pond is also used within the process. You can see there again to the right is another 3D rendering of the new facility. Next slide, please. The facility will have a secondary containment liner underneath it. So the facility does have concrete floors, which is a relatively impervious surface. That being said, there is a geomembrane liner, a plastic liner, that will form secondary containment underneath the facility, and this is to protect groundwater resources in the area. It's an energy efficient design utilizing heat from the composting process to minimize other heating inputs. And it's an advanced process and screening system. So this new facility, very excited about it. It's simple in some ways, has some other fancy bells and whistles to it. In particular, the screening system associated with this facility will be very effective at removing some of the contaminants we get in the green cart program, your glass, your plastics, those types of things. And as a result, we are expecting to have fantastic compost coming out of this facility. Next slide, please. And so here is a layout of the new facility in relation to the existing facility. So to the right there, you have Prospect Road, got the Irving on the corner, it comes on to Evergreen Place. You can see the existing facility there to your left, or to the bottom of the page, if you will. And to the top, you can see the layout of the new facility. Next slide, please. Current status of the project. Construction was initiated in 2021. The planned commissioning of the new facility is in 2023-2024. HCR is proceeding under a construction approval issued by Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change. As part of obtaining this approval, additional public consultation was completed in the summer of 2021. And there is current up-to-date project information on halifax.ca/new organics facility. This is also accessible via the solid waste homepage. It includes background information on the project, FAQs, as well as some current pictures taken of construction. Next slide, please. Here is a aerial picture taken of the facility under construction from August. So we're looking towards the northeast. You can see Bears Lake in the background. What you see there in the foreground is a stormwater management pond, which is being used during construction. And what you see in the background is the building under construction. When it's completed, it will form one building, similar to what you saw in the 3D renderings. Next slide, please. Here's a picture looking towards the southwest. In the background, you can see the fabric buildings. That's the existing composting facility. And again, in the foreground there, you can see the composting building itself. And then in the background to the right, you can see the stormwater management pond. And next slide, please. And thank you. Brings us to the end of the presentation.
Well, thank you, Andrew. It was interesting. Do we have any questions from the committee?
I would just like to say thank you, Andrew, for giving this presentation. I sit on the CLC committee as well, where we had this presentation by the company that's building the facility. So given its interaction with the Western Common, I thought it was really important that we bring it here, have this discussion. This is a recorded meeting that we're able to share with people who are interested in what is happening with the new organic facility. So, I feel like I did have a lot of questions the first time around with the CLC committee. But if there's any questions from the other committee members, that I'd be really interested myself in hearing them, and I'm sure Andrew would be too.
Hamad, do you have any?
No, I'm good on my end. Thanks.
Okay, I have a couple. You mentioned, Andrew, that the sewer and water will not be hooked up to this facility?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's one of the innovative parts of the design in that a big part of organics facilities, and certainly the experience we've had with our two existing facilities, is sometimes they can generate a lot of leachate. Sometimes even if you have a sewer connection, that leachate's too strong to actually direct to a sanitary sewer. And so one of the, I would say, things we've learned from our existing facilities was to look to, minimize the impact of leachate. And so this design was very innovative in that fashion, that it minimized the need for external water inputs.
So the stormwater management system pond, it looks like there's 2 ponds being put in there. Those are going to handle your water, and obviously you're going to have to clean it a little bit before you have it potable, or are you going to bring in potable water?
Yeah, I think the plan there is a drilled well for potable water. There'll be, I believe, a septic system associated just with just domestic use. And then the stormwater pond is purely for stormwater outside of the facility, runoff that is collected. And as you've noted, that is a treatment pond with a retention time and all of that to knock out the sediment with water quality criteria at the end.
So it'll be enough capacity to meet any potential Fiona type event?
I won't comment on Fiona, but what I will say is that it is designed to a 100-year storm event, so it is designed to the standards required by Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change. So that's a 100-year storm event typically.
Yeah, well, we got 100 and some millimeters possibly coming this weekend, so there'll be a little test for you, I guess. The old facility, once this is the new one's commissioned, the plans for that?
That's a fantastic question. So what I can say is, in the short term, over the next couple of years, as part of our existing approval for that facility, we'll have to submit a decommissioning plan to Nova Scotia Environment. That will pertain to specifically what we plan to do with the buildings, if we're going to remove them, what manner, and all those types of details. Additionally, we will likely be required to continue with the existing groundwater monitoring program there for some time, maybe a couple of years. I think that would be relatively a routine thing associated with a facility like this. And then beyond that, at this point, we don't have any definite plans. HRM certainly has policies around properties and what we do with them. Once they've no longer being used, and so certainly we'll be following those HRM policies.
Right. So basically, it's going to be decommissioned in an orderly manner.
Absolutely.
Okay. There's no plan to run them both concurrently. Yes, Councillor Cuddle.
Yeah, those were all great questions. There was one part that was, we've been discussing on the CLC, and that was around the stormwater runoff during construction, which was causing some concerns with the sediment in the streams around the property and around the facility. And I don't know if there's Andrew, if there's any update on what's being done to monitor the stormwater runoff during the construction phase. So, I mean, we have the retention pond and that piece to monitor stormwater once everything is complete and sodded and the berms are built and the containment, everything's kind of contained. And I know a lot of, thought and design has gone on to the finished product. But more about the water monitoring. I'm wondering if you can just give an update on the water monitoring that's happening during the construction phase with the testing that's happening both upstream, which I think is interesting, not just from this project, but I think it's interesting to kind of the Western Common as a whole, hearing about that water testing that's happening in and around the streams of the facility and way back. Actually, it's quite extensive, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, through the chair to you. So just to the west of the site, I think a lot of folks here would be familiar with, there's a walking trail there and there's a brook there to the west of the site. Early on, we did have challenges in 2021 associated with erosion and sediment control. In short, challenge was HCR cleared a lot of land associated with construction, got delayed with respect to their permitting, and as a result, ended up with a little bit more water than they anticipated to manage. They did respond very, very quickly, very appropriately, taking the advice from professionals, implementing all the action items that were identified. And so today on the site, what I would say is a couple of things. At the moment, even from those pictures I just showed from August, the site is actually a lot more stabilized now. There's a lot more grass, a lot more sod that's been laid. And so that really gets to some of the root challenges associated with erosion sediment control. But they did do things like improve some of the ditching, the construction of that ditching, improvements to silt curtains. They mobilized a water treatment system to treat sediment-laden water. And so all of that, I think, has resulted in a significant improvement in erosion sediment control on the site. And then to your point, Councillor, so currently, basically after every major rainfall event, per their provincial approval, they are required to do some background and like upstream, downstream monitoring of the brook to assess compliance that is laid out in the approval. And then in addition to that, they're required to do, I think it's every 2 months, routine monitoring at several monitoring locations within the brook and in the area, in addition to monitoring of groundwater, sediment, and a few other items which are done on I think groundwater is done on a quarterly basis and sediment on an annual basis. So there is a comprehensive monitoring program in place during construction, and that will roll over to a new program once the facility is commissioned, i.e. there will be an active stormwater, surface water, groundwater, sediment monitoring program.
Great. Well, that's good to know. Is that new? Rolling it over to, or was that always part of the plan?
That was always part of the plan, and yeah, that's always part of the plan. So monitoring program during construction, and then when the new facility is up and running, it will actually be, from what I recall, a more comprehensive program because now you have a new facility operating, so there'll be more groundwater monitoring upstream and downstream of the facility, and to be able to track sort of how groundwater quality changes or doesn't, within proximity to the facility.
Okay, so not just under the facility and around the facility where the leachate containers kind of are, but also around the perimeter of the site.
Correct.
That's good to know. Thank you.
I have one last question, I think. So underneath in the building, in the composting area, that is concrete floor, concrete underneath to catch all that. Is there something underneath that to catch stuff as well, piping and all, in case there's a
Yes.
crack in the concrete?
Yeah, so definitely there's some piping within the concrete to collect leachate. I think there's a couple of tanks to store leachate within the facility itself. So certainly there's lots of piping, concrete floors, but underneath the entire all of that is that geomembrane secondary containment, such that if anything, again, concrete's pretty impervious, but we do know again from experience that things do crack and there are leaks in these things, right? And so certainly the secondary containment provides us that added level of protection to protect the groundwater resource in the area.
Good. I assume that, but I wanted to hear it.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, if there's no more questions,
I just have one more comment on this facility before we go on it, and I just wanted to kind of highlight the technology around the doors, because odor is something that I hear a lot of concerns about from residents, and I know a lot of effort has been put into containing the odors with the airlock technology in the system. And I also think for the Western Advisory Committee that, this is also something important to note, because as we look at developing a park, which will be in and around the composting facility, the containment of odors is also, I think really important to the success of the park. I mean, no one wants to go to a park where there's odors, even though some people think it smells like chocolate. I'm not one of those people. So I was really pleased to see the extra effort that's being put into that. And Andrew, am I right that I think you said it, but I might have missed it in your presentation, that this is one of the first examples of this in Canada, of this airlock system?
That's correct. In fact, I don't know all the facilities in Canada. I know quite a few, and I'm not familiar with any that have this feature. So I do think it's a novel new feature that we've incorporated as part of this project.
Yeah. So I think that's important, not just for the neighbors, but for the Western Common as well. So just want to highlight that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
so this one is a double airlock, whereas the existing one is a single airlock.
Well, yeah, this existing one doesn't have an airlock, really, right? It has a single shipping door, as do most organics facilities. So the airlock is created by the double door. Technical jargon.
Okay, very good.
Chair, if I may, I thought I would just raise, we did want to plan a site visit. And so I thought I would just put that out there if we wanted to pick a date, and I could certainly coordinate and facilitate.
You jumped right into what I was going to bring up, sir. So that's excellent. I've got a note from Jessica that there's a couple of dates she can't do in this month, the 22nd, the 28th of September. I'm not sure how soon you might be able to do this, sir, or how soon anybody else might be able to.
I am away next week, so it'd be nice if we push this to October if possible.
Say it again.
I'm away next week, so if possible, it would be nice if we could push this into October.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention too, the ROC, which runs the Prospect Road Community Center, and we had a seat on this committee for them, and Amy is since stepped down from this committee. They have a board meeting next week, and I believe this is on the agenda to discuss who might fill that position for the PRCC. So it'd be nice if we could include someone from there as well. So I'll know more about that next week. I'll let the chair know and let you know, Andrew.
Okay.
And you, Eric.
So shall we try to pick a date today that we can start with?
Yeah. Get out our calendars.
So next week, so that takes us up to the end of the month. So we're talking about the first week of October. Good Lord, October. Huh. Okay, I wonder if we can pull this off before Thanksgiving, which is the 10th.
Yep. Wednesday, the 5th for me looks really good. And the after 3 o'clock on Monday, the 3rd looks good. The 4th is good right now. I have regional council if required, and I have a feeling it might be required. So I wouldn't want to put the Tuesday in there at this moment.
Andrew, how's your schedule there?
The 5th certainly works, would be a good day.
Okay, Hamad?
On 5th, yeah, around 6 p.m. works for me.
Okay. Does 1800 work for you, Andrew?
It can. How dark is it getting right now? What do you think the sunlight
Right.
situation will be?
It's 7 o'clock right now, and I mean it is cloudy and overcast. I'd say like we could get an hour. I don't think we could go for more than an hour if we start at 6. But
Yeah,
maybe we could start at 5:30, and maybe Hamad could join us at 6, just so we have a little buffer.
yeah.
Sure.
Does that work for you, Hamad?
Yes, that works.
Okay, well, let's go for 17:30 on October 5th. And we will meet on Evergreen.
Yeah, we can meet if you access the access road to the construction site. You'll see a sign there and everything, and you just you check in at the trailers. You'll see a bunch of trailers. There'll be one. If you check in there, you'll find your way. Do you think the committee members will have steel toe shoes by chance? I know vests and hard hats can be provided. It would make it a little easier because then we could, if it's a nice evening, we could walk around the site.
I can bring steel
I
toe.
don't, but it's actually on my list to purchase because this comes up for me on a regular basis. So it's about time I went out and bought myself a pair.
I don't have either.
Okay. Okay, and that's fine as well. What it will mean is the HCR will probably drive us around in a couple of trucks around the site, right? In view of health safety, perhaps it's evening. Maybe they'll deem it safe for us to walk around without steel toes, but we'll certainly have to leave that to them.
Okay. Steel toes advisable. All right, 17:30 on October 5th. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking
you,
forward
sir.
to this.
Okay, so where are we now? Information items brought forward under 8. We're on staff reports and discussion. So Gareth, well, finally, we have a report after what, 18 months or something? What can you tell us, sir?
High level. Good evening, everybody, by the way. High level report put and passed unanimously on consent. I think the important thing, obviously, are the questions which were outlined by the counselor and by Jane, and the concerns that were brought up, which were all things that I've made note of, so that when we pass it along to our colleagues over in Parks Capital, they're aware of the questions and curiosities, as well as when it eventually gets handed over to Parks Operations, there's awareness of what needs to happen there. So I think that there's some of the highlighted questions would be the existing trail, as Mark doesn't necessarily align perfectly. It's true. There was just some like maybe an inch or two off there, but it was conceptual anyways. Can the existing trail be finished to a certain standard? That's our intention. The accessible trails seem to be reduced. We reduced it at least conceptually, and are looking for every opportunity as we get on the ground to ensure that trails are accessible. And it's not just the built form of the trail, but it's also the amenities associated with it. Those are the big ones. And then Jane obviously had a curiosity or constraint around the inspection of the trail as far as frequency, which is paramount when it comes to accessible trail systems. And then need to get equipment around and how we design going forward. So these are all things that have been noted in a great questions and ways to address them. But moving forward, our next steps are let's keep constructing. We have a water crossing at Nichols Run that needs to be completed. Right? The handoff now to Parks Capital is great, and they're developing a plan for how we move this forward. That's my update. Any other questions about the report?
Yeah, so looking at the report, we really have the established trail that's more or less built now, although it's not quite right in the diagram that came with this, but that's already been noted. Everything else is backcountry trails after this. So the plan is situation as we start a trailhead. If it's possible to make it fully accessible, we will. If not, the default will be backcountry at this point.
That's correct. Yeah, because we wouldn't. We want to be establishing our front country accessible barrier-free trails, however you want to call them, in our areas that are at the edge of the trail with a trailhead. Because obviously, and I don't know if I made this nuanced of a point in my email back in August, but there's no sense in establishing an accessible trail if you don't have an accessible parking lot adjacent to it. It's pretty meaningless at that point. So we look for the amenities to align with it from a common sense perspective. Yeah.
So for Nichols Run, for example, we're now looking at a much more affordable, scaled back crossing, since it's going to be a backcountry trail at the other end, at the other side.
That's correct. Now we're just figuring out the best approach to do that, whether it's going in and actually constructing something, whether it'll be brought in with a helicopter. There's still some options. I forget the firm which we've reached out to, but I can get back to either the committee offline after this meeting or at the next meeting on that update.
So things will start speeding up is the anticipation here.
As long as we have the money to do so. Obviously, we're in the midst of it. Sorry?
Oh, I lost your sound there, but you're back.
All right. We're in the midst of preparing budget submissions right now. Obviously, those discussions happen around the council chambers, but so no pressure on Councillor Cuddle.
It all comes back, doesn't it? In the trail layout that came with this report, I noticed that the basically there's you've got it marked as a backcountry trail that runs right through the Drysdale Bog, which actually is where the old pipeline used to run through the Drysdale Bog. And when we did our tour on May 18th with the owners of that land who wished to do this land exchange, Councillor Cuddle and I were quite impressed with how wide and accessible that old pipeline road is. It's actually probably and accessible with very little work, largely quite accessible without doing very much work. But I see on the diagram here, it's marked as a backcountry trail going right through it. But actually that's land that I don't think we own right now. But can you give us, is the land exchange with Drysdale Bog and all, is that going through? Do you have any idea where that stands now? Is that why we have this line drawn through the Drysdale Bog in this diagram?
No,
That is our land. Sorry, Gareth, I was just jumping in there. That right away is
Yeah.
HRM land.
it's
Oh, even though
that's
we
all
don't own, oh, so we have the right of way through the bog regardless of who owns the bog.
anything on that map right there is based on figure 23 from the 2010 master plan. We've just overlaid new colors to it to update it to the approach which we're taking in 2022 and beyond. So there's no shifting as far as configuration of the layout of that conceptual map. Obviously, it's all subject to a little bit of change here and there, but that is the same configuration, at least, not necessarily the same trail spec as was approved back in 2010. So I believe anything that is highlighted on there would either be an old K road, which would be provincially owned, or municipal lands.
Okay, so this pipeline route, Councillor Cuttle, is actually an HRM right away.
Yeah, there's a series of PIDs there, and I'm just looking it up right now on the maps, and it's designated as a park type regional park. It's maintained by HRM, so yeah, where the owner is Halifax. So that thin right away, which is that road.
Okay.
I'll share. I don't want to take over the sharing here, but I can share that with you, or I can share my screen right now and show it to you. But there's a couple of pieces in there that are HRM owned, and they attach on either end to HRM owned land.
Okay.
And they're the big Indian road that we drove up that one day, and
Yes.
at that right away that cuts across. So I can, rather than try to explain to you on Zoom with my hand gestures, I'll share that map with you, Mike.
Okay, thank you. So is there an update on this land swap discussions to be had? Is that something we can request, or to?
I don't have any update on that. That would be something which is happening either through planning and development or corporate real estate.
Yeah, there is no update on that, Mike, and I think that part of that is tied to the current owner's application to change the zoning on. Okay. Remember, they needed to change the zoning on their parcel.
Yeah, that was part of what they proposed would happen, but I'm not sure what how that goes as far as which comes the cart before the horse and all that good stuff. Yeah,
I haven't heard anything about that, but I can inquire and provide a update on that at the next meeting.
I mean, it's the only outing we did this year, so it'd be nice to know where it's going.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, Hamad, any more comments from your end, sir?
I just wanted to know about this land swap. Can you just, elaborate?
There's a company that does a lot of work. They're on Mills Road. That they're the building just on Mills Road that's made of granite and rock and all. I can't remember the name of the company right now, but they do restoration of all the city halls and the provincial building and all that. They do very nice stonework, and they own the majority of all the land of Drysdale's Bog and land adjacent to it. And basically they've come to the city, HRM, and said, we would like to give you this land, but we would like these lands, which are now not zoned for their use, made industrial. I think 3 is what they need. and then they will give us Drysdale Bog. We can make it part of the Western Common. I think that's the gist of it. Because right now they have a lot of storage places farther out on the 333. And once the winter ban comes in for loads on the road, they have no access to their materials and they can't bring their trucks in or anything else. So they'd like to bring everything into this area, which is just basically an extension of Mills Road. They'd put an area in there and have a lay down area for all their scaffolding and all the rocks and everything else they need for their work.
Yeah.
Go
So I mean, that process will be that the property owners would make an application to the city for, I think they're looking for rezoning their property, but they don't need the Drysdale Bog. So yeah, that process, to Gareth's point, will go through planning and development.
Right. But it sounded quite exciting to have finally, after all these years, and if those of us have long enough memory, remember when somebody wanted to build an asphalt plant, I think, in there. We had to fight that back in many years ago to have that whole wetland nicely protected now, and part of the Western Common. So that's that would make a lot of people happy, I think. All right, well, thank you very much. Is there anything else on this subject? Okay, you're muted, Counselor.
Just that I too am very excited to see that we're at the point of looking at building this bridge, because once we get that bridge built, it means we can finish, right, Gareth? It means we can finish the trail from the prospect, from that trailhead to the bridge. It can be, rather than being that awful loose gravel, we can actually put the finish on the top of the trail after we get any heavy equipment that's needed for the bridge out of there.
That's right. We're just trying our best to keep going on this and get things built so that we can get some trail open. That's what we're aiming for.
And Gareth, if I may, as part of the discussions that's happening now is also how to prepare the trailhead and meet all the needs behind PRCC as well for parking and everything.
Obviously, in the depths of the report, there's a pretty extensive explanation as far as how you design your trailheads and design your parking lots as far as meeting accessibility standards. This is the important thing that we've realized in bringing things up to speed from 2010 to 2022 is that all of our guidelines have changed pretty significantly as far as accessibility is concerned. So I think a while back it might have been a perception that there was an opportunity to save on this by creating less of a robust accessible trail system. But we're really reinvesting to ensure that we can create the most accessible environment at our trailheads, and the maintenance will still align with that as well. So keeping at it.
Yeah, and Gareth, you and I had a conversation about this too, around the creating accessible trail, and that, right now the map doesn't really reflect what the possibilities are, because until you get in there and you start building and you start finding the opportunities, you're kind of doing it one bit at a time. But the intent, if I remember our conversation, our intent is to make accessible as much of the front country trail as we possibly can, which might include that piece down to Big Indian Lake.
Yep, that's exactly what our intent is. It gives our colleagues in Parks Capital and any contractors which are hired to develop trail the flexibility and latitude to make that decision with feet on the ground and real context, because we learned that in scoping it out. And, we want to be able to make those decisions in real time, as opposed to being constrained by just having one set trail system identified from such a high level.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. And Hamad, are you satisfied, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, good. So do we have any committee member updates? I think we don't. On my agenda, I have none listed. Anybody have any to add? No. And Eric, do you have any added items for the end here?
No, there are no added items.
No. Okay, very good. Well, with if there's no objections, we will wrap this meeting up, have one of our shorter ones.
Chair, just don't forget the item 11, the date of the next meeting.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I was just rounding up to that. So the next meeting has been planned for November 23rd, 2022, as was set out in the schedule earlier this year, or at the end of last year, I'm not sure. Yeah. So the next meeting will be November 23rd, and hopefully we won't have to defer that one. And with no objections, I asked for a mover to adjourn our meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Thank you very much, folks, and good evening, and we'll see you in November. Well, no doubt we'll be talking before, though. In October, we'll have a little tour.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike, for chairing, and thank you, Eric and Gareth and Ahmad